Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Total Podcast with me, your host, Phil Scott. So, on today's episode of the Total Podcast, I have another returning guest. She is an awesome author, she is a professor, and she has just written a brand new book. Her name is Aleksandra Tryniecka. So, Alexandra, it's so very nice to see you again and to have you on the podcast. Thank you for doing the show today. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Phil. Thank you so much for having me. It's a true honor to me to come back to your wonderful podcast. I'm doing very well. I'm doing magnificently well today. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. I'm doing all right. So it's good to see you again. So, Alexandra, if you would tell my listeners, especially my new listeners that may have not have heard our first meeting together, tell us about your first book, where you teach. But you can start where you teach first, and then you can talk about Bunky and the Walms, your first book, and then we'll bring it into your new book.
So much, Phil. Thank you so much for having me and my Bunkies. So these are my Bunkies. They are my literary characters. And before so this is Bunky, the Bunky Princess, Rodney, Plum, and Morris. They are very important. I'm an assistant professor at Maria Curie Skłodowska University. I specialize in British literature. I specialize in the Victorian age. And I just adore literature so much. I'm also a deputy head in Athens Institute for Education and Research in Literature Unit. And in 2021, I had this amazing joy of publishing my first book, Bunky and the Walms, The Christmas Story. It's published by Whip and Stock Resource Publications, and it is my debut novel, the first one. And in this story, my readers can meet Bunky and all the characters who are with us, as well as Rudolph the reindeer. He's also here. But it's a Christmas story, and yeah, this is a Christmas story for the youngest readers, but also for adults. It is a multi-layered story in which everyone will find something relatable. And it was my first book, a novel dedicated to Bunky. Afterwards, in 2023, I published an academic nonfiction, historical fiction, women's literary portraits in the Victorian and Neo-Victorian novel, and it was my academic book, but it is written for all the readers who love Victorian age and who love the past and who are interested in women as literary characters on the background of society. So this is dedicated to everyone, every reader who is in love with this time period or who would like to learn more. And I had this amazing honor of publishing with. So this book was published by Rowman and Littlefield in 2023, and currently on July 16th, I had this honor of having my second book dedicated to Bunky published by Whip and Stock Resource Publications. I don't have a physical copy yet, but the book is entitled Bunky and the Summer Wish. And again, it's a book for the readers of all ages. And it's the continuation of Bunky's story during the summer season.
Okay, so I think it's interesting too that your first book about Bunky was focused on the Christmas season, but this one is focused on the summer. And when I was reading and looking at the trailer that you did for the book, I like how you tied it into where he goes on his journey in the second book. So just give our listeners and viewers just a little taste of the plot and what happens, what might happen
What
with
might
Bunky.
happen, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Phil. Yes. So again, yes, you were right. I wanted to because I really love combining the literary world with our world, and I really love combining the literary worlds from my previous writing with the literary worlds encountered in the future books. So in this book, Bunky and the Summer Wish, yes, it's the middle of the summer season. Bunky is on holidays, but he will travel to the north He will travel to the North Pole because there he will encounter his friends from the first part of the story. There will be Santa Claus and other characters who the readers might already know. So they will encounter the same characters, some new characters as well. But this story will take us on the summer journey to the North Pole, back to where Santa Claus lives, and I hope to present this land, Santa Claus land, as this special place where noble dreams come true, as this land where goodness and nobility prevail, kind of in a symbolic way. And what the readers will find in this story, they will encounter Bunky, and he will be just closing his semester at school, so they will encounter him in the classroom with the characters they know, and Bunky will have a challenge. So I will not reveal everything, but mainly he will have to challenge himself. In the first volume, his challenge was to become the Christmas hero. Now his task will be much more difficult because Bunky will have to become the hero of his own life. And I think it's the most difficult and the most beautiful challenge we all have to face to become heroes of our own lives. So first of all, Bunky will have to challenge himself by taking part in a mathematical contest. It's called Golden Decimal Contest. And afterwards, he travels to the North Pole and he will have so many adventures, and all of these adventures will lead him on this pathway to become the hero of his own life in so many different ways. That's why I believe it's a book for readers of all ages, because it's a multi-layered story. And once again, the readers will have, just like in the first volume, they will be able to glance into Bunky's own writing and my story. These two layers will be intertwined as well in this
And,
new book.
and I think too, I love that theme. And I think people of all ages will be able to relate and get something um, from your book, because being the hero in your own life, I think that's so relevant, especially in this day and age, where people, a lot of people aren't necessarily taking responsibility for their own happiness and things that they can control. And I think, and everybody learns this. I've learned this, you've learned this, everybody's learned this. You've got to be proactive and engaged in your own life. And if you're not proactive and you're not trying to take steps to make things different or better, then you're not going to be the hero in your life. So
That's
as long as you're trying, you've got to make that effort. Then you can be not only a hero in your own life, but a hero in other people's lives too.
exactly, yes, exactly. And I really love that you mentioned this idea of being proactive, because I think there are moments in both stories, but especially in this new book, Bunky and the Summer Wish, when Bunky will wonder what is that definition of this true hero, the hero of one's own life. What does it mean? And he will tell some other characters like, am I this person because I'm scared, because I'm fearful, because I'm imperfect, because what I did might not be that perfect, it might be not a good choice, because I'm so afraid. And actually this is what makes what defines the hero, and this is what defines taking these proactive steps, like making mistakes, sometimes trying, just staying on the course and following one's heart, one's idea in so many ways. It's so important, especially even when I think about my students and my work. Often they tell me like, I'm not sure if it's right, or it must be so wrong, or I've done it in a completely different way, a wrong way. And I don't think so. It's they are just navigating. We are all navigating somewhere. We are just taking our own steps, just following our path. And there are mistakes, there are fears, we are afraid, we are unsure, uncertain, but it always takes us on this path towards
Yes.
becoming the hero of our own lives.
Yes, and life is basically trial and error.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
things you're going to succeed at, and some things you won't. And I think, and especially as you get older and you experience more, you have to understand that you're not going to be successful every step of the way. Sometimes there may be a step or two back, but if you
Yeah,
don't give up and you keep trying, and sometimes you may need to pivot and do something a little different to get to where you need to go. But that's
absolutely.
okay.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, this definition of success is also very important because I believe that in the modern society, we have it all wrong. We are just pushing forward and presenting these images of perfect life. And actually, what does it mean to be successful? To me, it's not giving up on this pathway, not giving up on one's decision or one's dream, just staying active. This is the whole success, not just being on top all the time or succeeding, or this is not even a failure is a success because it brings wisdom, it brings new solutions. If it's used for this purpose, it is definitely a success. If it's used wisely, if we fail and use it wisely to learn something new or change something, it's a success. So I think we have it all wrong, just pushing everyone to be successful and, even presenting such a superficial idea of life or on social media or wherever. Some people do that. They just present all kinds of things that are really on the surface of what it really means to be the hero of one's own life.
Right? Because
Yeah.
also too that there is value in learning from failure, and sometimes people forget that.
Yes, and I tell my students, if we all of us didn't fail, why would we even bother to come to university and talk and meet? It wouldn't make any sense. And it would be such a horrible place to live in if everybody was perfect. I mean, just imagine, Phil, it would be a terrible place if people were perfect. Like, how would you be able to spend a day in the world like this? Where I don't mean, people committing some bad deeds, or I just mean making mistakes, not always being perfect, not always being right, but always trying your best.
And
This
I
is
think,
really beautiful.
yeah, and I think mankind has always tried to grasp for a utopia, and it's not
Yeah,
there. And I think it's important to always try to strive to have the best possible life in
possible.
society as possible. I do not disagree with that, but you have to
Yes.
understand life is not perfect, and there are going to be bumps in the road that you have to navigate.
Always, yeah, yeah. And they are like learning experiences, and that's what I wanted to show on Bunky's example. These are learning experiences, that's fine. If there are no bumps on the road, how can you even become the hero of anything?
Right.
It's vital. Yeah, it's a positive challenge.
Yes.
It's like a perspective.
Now, I
And
wanted to ask you too, Alexandra, how long did it take you to write the second book in Bunky series?
thank you so much, Phil. So I've been writing this book from the moment I finished writing the first one. In the meantime, I published women's literary portraits in the Victorian and New Victorian novel. But I've been writing consistently wherever I had time. I stopped. We published Bunky and the Walms, and then I moved to this project because I knew from the very first part that I want Bunky to be a more complete character, a more fulfilled character, a more multi-layered character, and he's also like a part of my life. He's a huge part of my life. He's like, in terms of my literary life, he's like everything to me. And I would never give up on it. If I give up on Bunky, it would be like giving up on myself because his story became so close to my heart. I mean, Bunky has many characteristics that I have or my friends have. He's a huge part of my life. So I've been writing for the past 3 years, and
So,
we have over 300 pages of adventures.
wow, and I think that consistency helps you too as a writer, creatively, because it keeps you in that habit of always writing and exploring and using your mind and just thinking about where you want your story to go.
Absolutely. And actually, I found that writing is a remedy for everything. I mean, written word to me is a remedy for everything. And I structure my reality through writing and through creating this world where Bunky lives or any other type of writing. And indeed, consistency is a huge part of it. I think that what helps me to be consistent is you will understand it totally. It's my teaching job. You have to be very consistent. You have to you tell others to be consistent, and that's why you have to be super consistent as well. And you have to be very faithful to that, to just keeping the schedule and knowing that if you told others to be consistent, you have to be consistent as well.
Yes, and
Yeah.
also you write poetry as well. And I
Mhm.
think just even doing that genre of writing keeps it fresh and interesting, and it keeps you thinking about other things as well.
Thank you so much, Phil. Yeah, I think that to me, poetry it has this healing nature. It has this transformative healing power. Bunky and the Walms and Bunky and Summer, which also has this potential to heal, to transform, to bring the readers into this circle of experiences they are familiar with and allow them to face some challenges together with Bunky, no matter what age they are. But I think that also it's like a story. It takes you by the hand and you travel with Bunky for so many pages. And this is very important part of transformative journey. On the other hand, poetry is like a straightforward healing experience because it's short, it's concise, you can just dive into it quickly. And to me, it's healing. And I hope that if I can share it with other readers, it's also, in a way, a positive experience for them. I'm thinking about publishing my poetry volume now because poetry has been very important to me. I just adore different genres. I love historical nonfiction, which takes a lot of time. I love Bunky story, poetry, journaling, everything has this power of transforming, I hope, the reader's lives as well.
All
So,
right, that's
mm,
awesome. Well, let's take a quick break and we
mhm,
will be right back with a little bit more of our interview with Aleksandra. So we will be right back.
yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And welcome back to this episode of the Total Podcast with me, your host, Phil Scott. So I'm back here with Aleksandra Tryniecka. All right, so Aleksandra, she is the author of Bunky and The Summer Wish. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
And she's
Thank
written other
you.
books too. So I would just want to bring it back into what we were talking about before the break. So Aleksandra, I wanted to ask you too. You're uh, going to get you're thinking about getting your poetry published and all that, and I think readers will just love reading your poetry. I like that you've posted some of your poems on Instagram, and they're very powerful and they're very
Mm,
personal. And as a person who's written a lot of poetry in his time as well, especially in my college years, um, they can be very personal, but very healing. Um,
yes.
and what I love about your work is that it is it's so powerful and you can feel your emotion in your work. And I think your readers will really appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Phil. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And it makes me think that you should also publish your poetry then, because I think that these experiences are so universal for so many of us. And I like to define myself as this person with like personality like from Bunky's story, but also as this person because writing is poetry, because we are like multifaceted beings, all of us, and we go through different emotions. Some of them are like from Bunky's story, some of them are like from poetry, and it makes us complete and whole as individuals. So I'm very grateful that I can share it. And just, I mean, to me, writing poetry comes in a natural way. Sometimes it's like a part of my day. So I have lots of poems, and it will be a huge volume. I'm planning to do that, to work on this during these coming weeks and months, mainly weeks. So yeah, it's my journey. But on the other hand, as I said, I really think it's personal, but it's also very relatable. We are all like mirror reflections of one another. We don't even realize that. Like everybody is on some kind of journey or adventure or whatever, and this poetry is just. I really hope that I can share something that taps into other readers' hearts and minds and make them feel like they are not alone on the journey. We are all taking together, because we forget that everybody is just chasing something individually. And in fact, I always believe that we are mirror reflections of one another to some extent, and the words give us the power to prove it, that this is true.
Yeah, and
They are
I
like connectors.
you know
Mm.
that's the power of poetry. I'm being
Mm.
able to relate to someone else's feelings because
Yes.
you've gone through those situations yourself. And I think it's important. I mean, that's a huge role that poetry has, being able to bring other people in and to have them to relate to what you're feeling. And I know you're going to be able to do that, and you already have done that with the poems that you've posted on Instagram and such. So, two thumbs up for you. I'm
Thank
I'm
you so
glad
much,
I'm
Phil.
glad you're doing that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I mean, my poetry is so important to me. So if I can share it with readers, and it's just beyond amazing. I'll be working on that.
Now, I wanted to ask you also, Alexandra, in comparing all of the three books that you've written now, what did you find challenging about writing? Maybe one thing that you found challenging or fun about writing each of the three books. So the two Bunky books and then the
Okay.
one about the literature.
Thank you so much. I love this question. Yeah, Bunky and the Walms. It was my first novel, and what I found challenging was not writing itself, because writing is like a huge part of my life. I cannot breathe without writing. So I just, but the fact that I was completely disconnected at first from the publishing world and from the literary world, I had no idea what this world is about. So I just went with the flow and just wrote this book, Bunky and the Walls, and I thought I have no idea what I'm doing, but I do it from the bottom of my heart, and I guess this is enough. This will take. This is the most important. Just like Bunky says, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I do it in a noble way. I know that it comes from my heart, so it will be okay. And this was the challenge. I had no idea how to reach my readers. I really wanted to share Bunky with everyone because Bunky is so precious to me. I really wanted to make other readers happy with Bunky's presence. It was the pandemic world, so I had no chance of doing it. I didn't have social media. I was afraid of social media. I thought that everybody's terrible on social. This was like, because this is what I heard. Like people are hateful and stuff. But then I started social media, and it turned out that there's a wonderful community, and just this literary world opened up, and I stopped being afraid, a little bit like Bunky, of these challenges of social media. And I found ways to connect with readers, with other amazing authors whom I admire. And this was the most challenging, how to share the news that I created Bunky with anyone during writing, and how to publish my book. I kept sending my book, and I just discovered this wonderful publisher who published Bunky in the Worms. When it comes to writing women's literary portraits in the Victorian and neo-Victorian novel time period during which I constructed this book, It's around 10 years. Firstly, research, then some changes, then new publications appearing almost every week. There's new publication. You have to take it into account, and you have no idea how to finish working on your research. This is the most challenging. It's so fascinating, and at the same time, sometimes it's so exhausting because nowadays you have access to so many sources that it's overwhelming. You are just not able to finish with so many sources. And one day you have to tell yourself, this is the end. This is the final line. Some people will be not happy that I didn't include this or that publication which appeared recently, but I'm not able to do it being a human being. So I just drew this line.
Yeah, I
But it
had
was
the
difficult to finish.
yeah, I had the same issue when I was writing my master's thesis, which was 200 some odd plus
Yes,
pages. There would be always something new coming out about
always.
another Mustang or a Corvette or
Yeah,
something. So I'm like, gosh, I gotta fit all this stuff in, but then you're
exactly.
like,
And it's
I
so
can't, you can't.
overwhelming. This
Yeah,
can
you
drive you insane.
yeah,
This is the danger of writing a historical nonfiction. It can drive you insane. You love it, but as you said, or doing research, you don't know how to finish, how to end,
right.
because you want to include everything. It's
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, and it's hard, and especially with you're writing about literature, and that people are always writing something new
Always,
and different
always.
about that, and so it is challenging. So you're right. You have to get to a point where like, okay, I got to stop here. There are some things I won't be able to include, but that's okay.
Yes. And you hope that everyone will understand why.
Yes, yes, and I'm sure they will too, because like I said, doing research and writing about your research, that's not easy.
No.
That's a lot of work and a lot of dedication and
Yeah.
love that goes into that.
Yeah, and also what I found challenging about it is that I was using firstly I was using this very academic language, and when I read my introduction, I thought it's no. I mean, it's important to keep this academic format and the level of it, but I want to engage every literature lover, and I don't want to write something that might sound so in a way that makes you fall asleep. I want to create something fascinating for every reader. And I don't know if I managed, but I was trying. So this was another challenge to convert this typically academic source into something which is academic and on this level, but still is friendly to every lover of Victorian age, because Victorian age is a real thing. We cannot define and label everything by means of very professional language. Sometimes it's good to have this real conversation with readers, because we are actually like that. We are not like definitions in textbooks. This time period was real. People who were living back then, I like to think about them as if they were my neighbors or friends. I think this is so important when doing this research. So I always tell my students, like, you will meet some new friends during literature classes because these people were real. They were your age. They were my age. I mean, yeah, so let's not define them as individuals in a dictionary or something. And the last book, it was a challenging time to write it in general, on many levels. For instance, it was a very busy time too, professionally, personally, and I also had this feeling, apart from that, that I cannot disappoint Bunky. I cannot disappoint my readers, and I cannot disappoint myself. I knew what Bunky would be doing in this story from the very first moment that Bunky and the Walms was published in 2021, but I didn't want to disappoint Bunky, my readers, myself. I knew that I have to give my best to Bunky and the Summer Wish. I have to keep it on the same level as much as I can. And I don't know, I really hope I succeeded, because I was trying with the whole heart to do it. And it was so much fun and such a healing experience. Really, I mean, I really wanted to offer Bunky this literary life he deserves, because I think that he is like a little, maybe big, bright light for me and for the readers who
And
connect with him.
the world definitely needs that bright light too.
Oh yes, yeah, it's
Well,
the world's.
I've never had a chance to ask you
Mm,
about what is it that you love most about teaching college students?
Thank you, Phil. What I love the most, I think you will agree with me on that. I will agree. So, okay, I really love studying. I really love learning. I cannot live without it. But what I really love the most about working at university, um, my relationship with students and colleagues. For real, I would never trade it for anything else. I just adore this place because of them. And for them, I want to study, I want to learn, I want to be my best. This is top of the top. I think you would agree with me on that.
Yes, yes, I do
Yeah,
agree.
the
And
same.
and having had an opportunity to teach college students before, it's totally different than teaching at, say, the
Yeah,
elementary level. I mean,
yes.
you get, and for me, it was being able to draw students in to
Mm,
United States history that didn't like United States
yeah.
history. And by the
Mm-hmm.
time they were at the end of the course, they're like, wow, Mr. Scott, wow, we loved your class. We didn't learn
Yeah.
that much in high school. And so to me, it was just getting students interested in learning history that maybe didn't like it. And I was
Yeah,
able to do that. And so when you're inspiring students to learn something new or
yeah.
to gain an interest in something maybe they didn't think they had an interest in,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a very special
Yeah,
feeling.
exactly. You know, I agree with you. You can, everything is so interesting. It depends how it is offered. There were some courses in the, I mean, for example, at school, but I wouldn't like them. I thought I don't like them. But then I had like different teachers and I saw their passion. I felt their passion and I became very passionate about, you know, like Bunky's challenges, for example, some mathematical subjects. I thought I'm terrible. But then it all depends on, I think, on the energy between like the whole community and the teachers, students, like the intentions, and the fact how they feel about this job, which is like a pleasure, even if it's hard sometimes. Because if they find it boring or difficult or like a chore, the students will feel the same. The students will feel the same energy.
Mhm.
So for me, it's amazing that I can come to my students and we really work together. We really learn from one another. I've never had the same class on the same topic. Never.
Wow.
I'm sure you would agree. When we
Yes.
discuss literature or a text, it's been always different. Something else would come out.
Now, I wanted to ask you too. Um, do you see yourself writing another book about Bunky?
Thank you so much, Phil. Yes.
So
Yes,
Bunky's adventure will continue.
yes, and again, I saw it when I was writing Bunky in the Walms. It's like yeah, definitely yes.
And also, do you plan on writing another book about literature, or do you want to go in another direction, or what do you see yourself doing with that? Because I know that was basic, that was a lot of research that was
A
based
lot.
on that you did. So do you plan on doing any more writing along of the Victorian literature, or what do you hope to do?
Thank you so much, Phil. Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm working now on a work dedicated to Anthony Trollope, to Oscar Wilde, and I'm constructing this book out of articles I'm writing and publishing. I'm just conducting this side research wherever I can, whatever that means, wherever I can.
Oh,
But I'm
wow.
working on that actively, and it's a part of my so-called job. I have to do it, but it gives me a lot of joy. So it's a very nice experience. So I'm working on that, but it's not coming now. I just have to work on this project a little more, much more, and much longer. And then mainly at this moment, I'm thinking about publishing my poetry collection. And also I have this idea and I had this idea for all the years too, and I have this work. I'm thinking about publishing in the future an adult novel, kind of a Bildungsroman, and it will be another different
Oh, wow.
genre. Yeah, so
You're quite a busy lady. I like that.
thank you. I'm too busy.
Well, I like that you're staying engaged in your writing, and
Mm,
don't get me wrong, people need a break. You got to take a break now and then to, to,
Yes,
to
I feel the
recharge and
same.
rejuvenate.
Bunky and I are going to the North Pole, while we hope that the readers will enjoy reading Bunky's adventures at the North Pole. We'll be taking time off at the North Pole with Bunky this summer.
Awesome. That's terrific. Well, I know you need it and Bunky will appreciate it, and all of the readers of your new book will appreciate it too. So
Thank you so
Alexandra,
much.
oh, thank you so very much for doing the interview again. It's so wonderful to have you on. You're so well spoken and intelligent, and you
So what?
just you just have this glow and energy about you. And I know your readers appreciate it too. And I'm looking
Thank you
forward
so
to
much.
reading your next Bunky book that's out now too. So Bunky and the Summer Wish is her latest book. It's Aleksandra Tryniecka, and Aleksandra, thank you again so very much for doing the podcast. It is an
Okay,
honor, a
it is an
great
honor.
honor, and a pleasure to have you on.
Absolutely, I am honored. I'm truly grateful that you invited Bunky and me again. It's been a real honor to me to meet you again
Thank
during
you.
this podcast. And here's Rudolph.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
the
you.
character from the novel.
Yes, and I wanted to make sure in the show notes, look for links to Alexandra's books and her social media. And is there anything else you'd like to add for the listeners before we wrap things up?
Thank you so much, Phil. May I add one information? So,
Sure.
Bunky, if dear readers, if you would like to go to my website, you will see I have a link to my YouTube channel, and on YouTube channel there is a contest announced. It's a artistic contest for the readers of Bunky and the Summer Wish, and Bunky and I would like to grateful if you would like to share with us your artworks dedicated to Bunky and the Summer Wish, because Bunky has special prizes, and we have two categories, children and adults, to make it fair. So, dear readers, Bunky and I are so excited to see your works.
Oh, that's awesome. What a fun contest. I like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Alexandra. So, readers, please pick up her book, Bunky and the Summer Wish, and her other works as well. Again, Alexandra, thank you so very much for doing the
Thank you
podcast.
so much, man.
You're
It's
very
a true
welcome.
honor. Thank you for me, for Bunky.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you and
we really love
Bunky.
your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's such an honor to have such an accomplished and hardworking author and professor
Thank
as
you so
yourself
much.
on. So thank
I'm
you.
just thank you so much. I'm just trying to follow Bunky and into his footsteps.
Well, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, with that, everyone, that is the end of this episode of the Total Podcast with me, your host, Phil Scott. Everyone, stay safe, be careful out there, take care of one another, and we will talk again soon.